welcome back, everyone, to an edition of Hall Pro. It's been a long time since we did an episode of this podcast on Pirate TV, but we're bringing it back, and there's no better people to bring it back with than Wilnir Lewis and Chris Ellison. Guys, how are you doing today?
I'm absolutely fantastic. It's unfortunate that the basketball season and the NBA Finals is officially over, but now we got baseball, we got the Stanley Cup Finals as well, and of course football coming around the corner. So being able to talk about professional sports, it's something that we all do on a regular basis. So I'm happy that we're bringing Hall Pro back, and I'm happy that it's us three that's going to be able to bat lead off with this one.
Man, we're back and we're better. What can I say? We're back and we're better. And I'm happy to be with you guys. Happy to be here. And let's get to it.
Well, like you said, Wilnir, the Warriors did indeed win the finals, and they caught the dub. Steph Curry ended up getting his first finals MVP of his career. I just want you guys to give me a quick breakdown of the series. How did the Celtics win, and what did the Celtics do wrong?
Well, I think for the Celtics, they weren't able to handle the pressure. Like, everything got to them. Coming into the finals, the main conversation was, the Celtics are great defensively. They're the number one defensive team, but everybody seemed to, overlook the fact that the Warriors were the second best defensive team in the NBA during the regular season. So I think that, everybody was kind of highlighting the defensive part for the Celtics, but weren't really highlighting the defense for the Warriors. So in terms of that, that category was kind of comparable between the two teams. So then you look at the offensive side. Which team is able to find the right plays, get the right players to kind of beat the offense or beat the defense of the other team? The Celtics, they had a couple of quarters and a couple of runs where they were able to do that, mainly game 3 and, of course, the fourth quarter of game 1 where they're able to come back and beat the Warriors in that game. But overall for the series, when you have Steph Curry going off the way that he was able to do in game 4, when you had him also being able to kind of contribute in game 6, as well as getting other players to contribute. Andrew Wiggins had probably his best series in his best couple of games in the NBA Finals. Jordan Poole was able to kind of contribute as well. Draymond Green in the closeout game in game 6 was able to have one of his best games, in the 4 finals that the Warriors were able to win. So the thing with the Warriors was that they were able to get contributions amongst everybody. Whereas for the Celtics, it was kind of like, Jaylen Brown was kind of the main guy. Al Horford coming up, lighting out everything. And then Jason Tatum, they had a couple of great scoring, games, but in terms of efficiency, it wasn't that great. In terms of turnovers, wasn't that great as well. So overall, the Celtics just weren't able to fully handle the pressure. The Warriors, they showed that they were the veteran team. They showed that they were the team that's been there before, and they were able to kind of weather the storm from the Celtics early on and find a way to, again, host the championship title, 4 times in the last 6 years.
To piggyback off your Jason Tatum point, Jason Tatum had 100 turnovers in this postseason. That is just insane. No other player has ever had 100 turnovers in the postseason. So I think that just goes to show you that the Celtics this whole series were playing at 100, while the Warriors were playing at 100 at times, but they knew when to slow it down, when to stop being in their own head, when to get low quality shots. If you look at a lot of those games, Jaylen Brown was coming down the court, going into the lane against 5 people and just throwing it up, trying to get a foul. Jason Tatum was doing the same thing. And if you also look at it, Jason Tatum was throwing a lot of jump passes, throwing a lot of errant passes across the court. Marcus Smart was just shooting long threes, wasn't really playing his game. Al Horford was the only really consistent one that whole series. So I think that just goes with experience, age. Warriors have been here a whole bunch of times. They knew what they were doing. Draymond Green played great the last two games of the series, I'd say. Steph played great. Clay played great, but his efficiency just wasn't there. But you can't knock the contributions the Warriors got from everybody else, like Andrew Wiggins. While Iggy didn't play, his mentorship, like we saw that clip of him getting on Andrew Wiggins. So I think you can't teach things like that. You can't teach bench depth. You can't teach experience. So I think down the line, we're going to see the Celtics again in the finals. That's a given. They're too talented. They're too good to not be here again. But it was definitely a masterclass by the Warriors.
Yeah, and it for me kind of felt like the Celtics were trying to beat the Warriors at their own game almost. Like you guys mentioned the pace a lot and Marcus Smart hoisting threes. And those are things that the Warriors, they're known for. That's their reputation. That's what they've built their brand on, essentially, the Splash Brothers. And I think a moment that really showed that for me was late in game 6. Al Horford had Steph Curry on him in the post, and he was 5 feet away from the basket. And he passed it up for a Jason Tatum three, and Jason Tatum missed the three. And I was like, Al Horford is 7 foot and has probably 50 pounds on Steph Curry. If he shoots a layup right there, it's going in. It's just going in. And the passivity on the interior from the Celtics at times. I know Jaylen Brown was trying to force it all season or all series long and to vary success in different games. But it was just felt like the Celtics, they couldn't adapt to the Warriors. They tried to play exactly like the Warriors in this series, and they couldn't because that's not their personnel. And that was just a failure, in my opinion. I think that the series could have gone to 7 easily. I think the Celtics could have won because they're a very, very talented squad, very young squad. And at least a few of them in game 6 looked hungry. Al Horford played the best basketball I've seen him play since 2015 with Atlanta this series. He was phenomenal all series long. So I think it's a bit of a failure on the Celtics part to not realize how they should play. They're not playing like themselves. They're trying to play like the Warriors. But let's move on to the Finals MVP, Steph Curry. You know, he's finally got his first Finals MVP. It's something that he's been looking for quite some time now. What do you think this win means for the Warriors, but not only the Warriors, for Stephen Curry?
I mean, this is probably their weakest team in terms of talent. Aside, from those runs, but I think this is their most important win and most meaningful finals win just because of the personnel around them. For Steph's legacy, I think this win does a lot for his legacy because, the knock has always been no finals MVPs. How can a great player not win a finals MVP? But he's finally got one. He can shut all the haters up. But this win definitely meant a lot more than I think any other championship that the Warriors have won.
I think along the same lines too. Like Chris had mentioned, just a lot of the things that the Warriors had went through this year. I mean, Clay only coming back, I believe, in January. Curry having to deal with his injuries. Like Curry had mentioned, nobody really expected the Warriors to really be the champions at the end of the season. Of course, besides Stephen A. Smith, who perfectly guessed that back in October. But, nobody really thought that the Warriors would be able to make it this far until the playoffs started rolling around and then they started seeing the Warriors started hitting their strides. You looked at a lot of other teams, both in the East and in the West, and you kind of thought, the Warriors are good and the Warriors have that experience, but are they going to have enough to be able to make it to the NBA Finals and be able to win the Finals? Like we even saw when they even made it to the Finals. The Celtics were the favorites in that series, like Ryan had mentioned, just because of the talent that the Celtics had, the defense that the Celtics had, and Jason Tatum was balling out of his mind. Jaylen Brown was balling out of his mind. And again, the Warriors were able to kind of silence all of that. So I think that this is definitely, like Chris had mentioned, the most important win that the Warriors had throughout the 4 wins that, Clay, Curry, and Draymond all were able to get that together. In terms of Steph's legacy, for me, I don't think that this changes anything. I think Curry has cemented himself as one of the best shooters, cemented himself as one of the best scorers, showing himself to be one of the better facilitators. I think the one thing that this series and overall this playoffs helped to show a little bit more was the defensive side of Curry. I think that a lot of people didn't really, know that much about Curry. They seen him as, mostly a scorer and an offensive player. But I think that Steph Curry really started stepping up defensively. Again, for me personally, I didn't really buy that much stock into him not having a Finals MVP before this, and now having a Finals MVP, it doesn't really move that much weight for me. But of course, like Chris had mentioned, there's a lot of people on social media, a lot of people, in the media that was questioning, oh, Steph Curry is such a great player. Why didn't he get a Finals MVP? KD took it from him, and who got the other one? I think Iguodala got the other one. Like, everybody else is getting one. Why is Steph Curry not getting one? So I think to finally be able to get that and then shut that up, again, I think definitely does help out. But for me personally, it doesn't really move the needle that much. We all know how great Steph Curry is as a player.
One other person that I saw predict this Warriors finals run is Flight Reacts on the first game of the season. No, I'm dead serious. The Warriors beat the Lakers, and he said the Lakers aren't making the playoffs, and the Warriors are going to the finals. So props to Flight. He got it right.
June. It's June too. So
I mean, he got it right. That he said that back in October. So I mean, props to him. But that's a great point on Steph Curry's defense, Wilnir, because I felt like the Celtics, they were really trying to switch on to him every single time, and it just wasn't working. And again, that was another failure to adapt, but it really spotlights how hard he played this series. He wasn't going to let the Warriors lose, and the Warriors as a whole, I think it's their most impressive finals win by far. But looking more into Steph Curry, a lot of people have talked about him potentially being a top 10 player of all time now. Do you guys think he ranks in that category, or did he already before the series?
I think it more solidified him in the top 10. I think for me, he was on the brink, I believe, probably like 10 to 15. So it was just kind of like borderline coming into this. But again, being able to have the performances that he was able to have throughout these playoffs, being able to get the Finals MVP. Of course, that Game 4 masterclass that he was able to have. Like, I think that those games really kind of cement, him being in that top 10 range. I wouldn't be able to say who my top 10 is right now, but I think that, again, just being able to kind of solidify that. Every great player, every player in that top 10 usually has those moments where, like, they're in takeover mode. They're able to, be that guy on a finals team. Of course, LeBron had that. Of course, Jordan had that. Kobe, if you want to put him in the top 10, of course, he had that as well. So, like, Curry now is able to get that win. A lot of questions was, is he riding backseat to KD, even though they won it before KD went to the Warriors? Now being able to take this lesser Warriors team, without KD, a team that was, not really built or anything, anything like that. It was a team that was built from the ground up through the draft and, through one trade to get Andrew Wiggins coming in. So for Curry to be able to take that team, and really be that number one guy on the team. Of course, there were some games that Curry wasn't in takeover mode, but overall, as he won the Finals MVP, he was that guy. So I think that this does solidify him in that, again, top 10 range. I think for me, before he was in that 10 to 15, but now with this, he's definitely in the top 10.
I mean, Steph's always been in my top 10. I mean, Steph is arguably the greatest shooter of all time. It's just to see from what we come from when he was drafted to now. It's been insane. It's really been insane to see his growth. But as far as top 10 goes, Steph has been in my top 10 for a few years now. So I think that these finals definitely made his spot more secure and probably moved him up over a couple people. But as far as him being in the top 10, he's never left since, I think, 2016. So
yeah, I definitely think that it puts him in that range. I didn't have him in my top 10 before. Like Wilnir, I had him in the 10 to 15 range, but I think that he's certainly made a case for himself that he should be in that top 10. I don't like the Kobe disrespect though. Come on, like Kobe is easily top 10. Let's not.
Listen, there's just a lot of hoopers, man. Like, that's why I said, off the top of my head, I can't name my top 10. Is Kobe probably going to be in the top 10 if I sat down and thought about it? Most definitely. But there's just a lot of hoopers in the 75 years that the NBA has been played, man. Like,
all right, I'm gonna let it slide. I'm gonna let it slide this one time. But no, I think Curry definitely put himself in that conversation. I think this was a legacy defining series for Steph Curry. And like you said about those big moments, those all-time greats have those moments where they just take over a series. And that was most certainly that for Steph Curry. I mean, Game 4 was absolutely absurd, that run that he went on by himself, essentially. But let's move on to the Boston Celtics and talk about their star, Jason Tatum. Chris, you touched on him a bit earlier. He's been catching some serious flack for the way that he played in this series. How do you both feel he played, and do you think the hate coming his way is deserved?
Honestly, yes. And he played good, but he didn't play at the level like a player of his caliber should play. Watching every game, you could tell he was a little nervous. You could tell he was jacking up shots. You could tell he was in his head. And I just think as that guy, Jason Tatum is that guy. I think we can all agree he's that guy, right? Yeah. All right. So as that guy, I think you need to play at a certain level that elevates everyone else. At times, Jaylen Brown was the best player on the floor, and it wasn't close because Jaylen Brown wasn't playing scared at times. He wasn't jacking up shots. He was being aggressive. Jason Tatum's standing in the corner waiting for a shot, or he's driving in the air looking for a pass, and it's just like sometimes you wonder like what's his mindset, what's his way of thinking, and even with the Kobe comparisons, you have to play a certain way. You have to carry yourself as a superstar a certain way. And I don't know. He just didn't check those boxes. So it kind of made me think, like, kind of rethink him being that guy. He's just a guy right now. So
I feel like people are trying to connect the flack that he's getting and the criticism that he's getting with him not being a great player. And I think that those could be exclusive. Like, yes, 1,000%, he deserves all the slander that he is getting for his playoff or for his finals performance, not his playoff performance, but his finals performance. And the reason that I'm passionate about this topic specifically is I'm going back to Stephen A. Smith. He had posted out a video on his social media where he was like, oh, everybody cut Jason Tatum some slack. Oh, he's just 24. Like, don't worry, he's going to be back. Like, you could still get slander as a great player. LeBron, for example. Everybody knows how great LeBron is. Everybody has LeBron, if not one, maybe two, definitely top 5 players in the NBA. But the main slander that LeBron gets is 2011 when he just completely imploded against Dallas. I don't think anybody at that point was like, oh, does LeBron deserve to get any slack? He's young, this is his first finals. No, everybody was completely ridiculing that man. Jordan, everybody ridiculed that man for not making the finals. He was just getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs. Every great player is able to get slandered, but everybody's able to recognize that they're still a great player. Jason Tatum is a baller when he can, but that does not take away from the fact that the Celtics almost basically lost because of him, because he was shooting, I think 30% from the field. Like you mentioned, Chris, during the playoffs, 100 turnovers. Nobody's ever done that. He just wasn't able to kind of turn it down and really let the game come to him. And I mean, I'm not even going to mention, I'm going to mention it. The Kobe thing was still kind of funny to me. I'm not going to lie. Like, for him to have the Kobe armband in Game 7 against Miami and put out the text message, oh, yeah, I texted Kobe before the game. Like, if you're going to do that, right, you got to know that stuff is going to be coming your way if you don't perform well after the fact. So, like, the fact that he did that, and, he had a great Game 7 to take the Celtics past Miami in Miami. But then you go to the finals, and now you're not able to hoop. Like, that was just a little funny to me. Like, I'm not going to criticize him for it, but it was just kind of funny to me. But overall, does he deserve the criticism? Yes. Does that take away from him being a great player? No. And that's just what it is. Great players all have that criticism, and you just got to be able to take it into next season.
Yeah, if anything, I think this criticism can make him become better as a player. I mean, this should motivate him more than ever to be in the gym over the offseason trying to get better. And I think that he should be replaying that Warriors championship celebration in his head every time he takes a jump shot this offseason. I think that'll be motivation for him moving forward. And I don't see why he can't be that great player that everyone knows he can be. The Kobe thing, I'm not going to lie, I did think it was a little bit corny. I thought he was trying to force it a little bit. But hey, if it worked, I mean, more power to him. It would have been a pretty cool story if it worked. But yeah, like you said, Will, obviously, if you're doing that, if you lose, you got to expect some criticism to come your way. But hoping the best for Jason Tatum. Even myself as a Lakers fan, I don't like the Celtics very much. I hope that he can figure it out next season. And I know that they'll be back. They're a very talented team. It would be a complete surprise to me if they were not back in the finals at some point in their careers. But let's move on to hockey. The Stanley Cup Finals are actually in swing right now. They're still going on. And the Avalanche are leading 1-0 at the time of this recording. Game 2 is being played tonight as we're recording this on Saturday. So I'm just wondering, not any Game 2 predictions, but because by the time this is posted, that'll have passed. But how do you think this series is going to go in general?
I think that this series is sort of kind of similar to what we saw in the NBA. You have this great historic franchise, at least in recent history, in the Lightning. They won the past 2 Stanley Cups versus the Colorado team that's really starting to hit their stride throughout these playoffs. I mean, they swept 2 teams, and the other team that they're able to beat them 4-2. So, and the way that they're able to beat them too, it has been their offense. It has been at their fast. It has been at their physical. So, I think that overall, I'm still going to give the edge to Colorado. I think that we're probably going to get a good series. I think that the Lightning having to go a little bit longer with the Rangers made them a little bit tired. The fact that the Lightning were able to come back in game 1 and at least tie that game, and then, of course, Colorado took the win in overtime, definitely does show some life and show that we should have a great series. But I think that Colorado has been hitting their stride too much in the playoffs. And as we see in the playoffs, as we saw in the NBA, it doesn't really matter what you do in the regular season. It matters, when you're able to hit that stride. And I think Colorado is hitting their stride almost perfectly right now in terms of their offense, in terms of being fast, in terms of being able to get that puck into the goal. So, I'm going to give my edge to the Avalanche. I think they're going to raise the Stanley Cup for the first time, in the past over 10 years.
I have to agree. We've seen this in all sports. When you make a run at the right time, no one can stop you. We've seen it at NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, soccer, anytime. When a team is hot, it's just no matter what you do, you just can't stop it. And like you said, they've been on their stride. They've been on their run. They're playing really great, sound hockey, real clean. Not a lot of errors, not a lot of mistakes. So I like you said, I don't see them losing the series, and I definitely see them raising the cup.
Yeah, I'm actually going to disagree with you guys. I think that the Lightning are going to take it in the end. Colorado did have a great start to game 1. They had 3 goals in the first period, but it looked like the Lightning sort of adapted to their pace as the game went on. They tied it up, and they were unable to walk out of game 1 with the win. But I think that championship pedigree, I think that's what's going to propel them forward, because they looked like they adjusted really well to Colorado as the game went on. And I think that's going to happen as the series goes on. So I'm thinking Lightning in 6 or 7, because Colorado is a very talented team. I mean, they just swept the Oilers in the conference finals, and the Oilers have the best player on the planet. So this is a very talented Colorado team, but I think the Lightning's championship pedigree is ultimately what's going to propel them through and get them the win in the Stanley Cup Finals. But let's move on to the MLB now. We've got a couple of great teams in the New York area right now. Both the Mets and the Yankees have been cooking. They're both at the top of their division, and they were the first 2 teams to 40 wins in the MLB. The Yankees are 9-1 in their last 10. Like, they're just going insane. So let me talk to you guys about them. Aaron Judge has been phenomenal this year. Do you guys think he wins the AL MVP?
Oh, there's no question that he doesn't win it. If he continues the pace that he's on right now, I mean, he's on pace, I believe, 66 home runs. Like, he has been really great for this Yankees team that, has really blown up over this season. The thing with the Yankees over the past couple seasons has just been, either they start off well and then they fall off a cliff, or they start off well and as injuries start happening and then they're unable to really, keep their momentum going. But the fact that this year the Yankees are really starting to hit their stride, both on the offensive side, we've seen just their last game on Friday, they're able to get 12 runs. And Aaron Judge, it seems like every single game, top of the first, bottom of the first, Aaron Judge solo home run. Like this guy is absolutely tremendous when it comes to, stepping in the plate and having to see these other pitchers. The question with the Yankees has been, can they play good teams? But again, they were able to just win their last game 12-3. So I think that Aaron Judge right now just has a surefire case for being the AL MVP. I mean, you're one of the best players on the best teams in terms of marketability. If you want to kind of discuss that part of MVPs, I mean, Aaron Judge is a very marketable player. Again, the Yankees are a very marketable team. and they're the best team in MLB right now in the AL, since we're talking specifically the AL MVP. So I think, to your question, without question, Aaron Judge, as of right now, would be the AL MVP if the season ended today.
100%. I mean, we've seen this version of Aaron Judge before. He's always been derailed by injuries or outside factors. So I think we're seeing everything all come together, not just for him, but just for the Yankees in general. We're seeing everything come together. They're a very deep team. Throw anybody out there and they have a chance to win. So I think the Yankees are playing really, really great baseball right now. Definitely the hottest team in the MLB. But as far as Aaron Judge winning AL MVP, easily, I stake my house on it. If he doesn't win and I'm homeless, I'm coming to one of your guys' houses. But I think it's a surefire bet for him to win AL MVP.
Yeah, Judge has been just phenomenal so far this year. I mean, he's hitting like 13th in the league in batting average or something like that, and he's leading the league in home runs by quite a large margin. I think it's 6 home runs that he's ahead of Byron Buxton right now. So he's just been electric to start the year. And I think equally as important is how good the Yankees have been, because he's the best player on the best team in baseball right now. If they can keep up this pace, and if Judge can keep up this pace, I think he's a surefire bet to win MVP. Just the best player on the best team typically wins the award. It's just that simple. So I think if Judge keeps it up, he'll be the MVP by the end of the season. But let's talk a little bit about the Mets, excuse me. They're missing 2 of their best pitchers in Jacob deGrom and Scherzer, and they're still cooking teams. Like they're still this good without 2 of their best pitchers. What is the potential of this team when they come back later this year?
That's definitely something that I've been thinking about recently too. I'm like you just mentioned, the fact that the Mets are, the best team in the NL right now without Jacob deGrom, arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball, has been absolutely crazy for me to think about. Like, even on top of that too, not only is he a great pitcher, but he's also a great hitter as well. So, it has been very interesting to see the Mets, be the team that they are right now. And, contrast to, all the questions of, can the Yankees beat good teams? The Mets have been beating, some pretty good teams as well. I think that the potential for the Mets are to still be able to kind of hit their stride. Of course, the question is going to be, how are these players going to come back from injury, and what kind of player are they going to look like when they come back from injury? Is Jacob deGrom going to go back to that elite status that he was? Is Max Scherzer going to be able to, continue to be as well as he was before the injury? So that definitely is going to be a question for the Mets and how they're able to get back into the rotation. But I think that if they're able to hit, at least 80% of what we saw prior to their injuries, I think that the Mets are going to be just fine, and we should be in for a pretty interesting World Series that we're going to talk about later.
It's just a great time to be a fan of New York baseball. I mean, everybody's doing well. You can't really talk bad about any team. It's just great to witness this. But back to the Mets point, I think it goes back to what we said about the Yankees. The Mets are just a really deep team, a really cohesive team. Not any major glaring weaknesses. It's really a testament to how they've been built over the past 2 years with the trades they've made, the signings they've made. It's just hit after hit after hit, and everything's gelling right now. Everything's going good. So when deGrom comes back, when Max Scherzer comes back, it's just going to be even better than it is now, because, arguably the best player in baseball, in my opinion, arguably the best player in baseball, adding him to this team, how they are right now, in my eyes, I don't see that being a bad thing. So like Wilnir said with the World Series, it's gonna get very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, you guys have both hinted at it. So let's just go ahead and talk about that World Series. Do you guys think that we have a Subway Series World Series inbound? And what would that mean for New York? I feel like New York would implode if that was the case.
Hey, all I'm gonna say is I'm gonna save up money right now and find a way to hit up both fields at least one time during that World Series. Like you mentioned, New York would absolutely implode. All 5 boroughs, just every single uptown, upstate, just every single thing. New Jersey, North Jersey might also implode as well. Like if that actually does happen, that would be one of probably the most insane things that can happen in baseball. I mean, the MLB will be shaking in their boots at all the money that will be bringing in, if they're able to get both New York teams. Like, just imagine the New York media, the New York market. I mean, it's the #1 sports market in the world. Then you have both teams in the World Series. Like, come on, for America's pastime, for the most popular sport in the United States, like, come on, that would be absolutely crazy for the MLB. That would be crazy for New York as well. So, I mean, if the MLB is listening right now, they got to find a way to do that. I don't know what calls they're going to have to bring in, but they're going to have to find a way to bring it. In terms of the likelihood, I'm still reserving the likelihood right now. I mean, we haven't even hit the All-Star break yet. Again, it's great for both of these teams to hit their stride early in the season, but what are they going to be able to do towards the end of the season? And I think that both teams do have the potential to be able to, make that run in the playoffs, make that run to the World Series. I mean, the Yankees, all the pieces that they're able to pick up there during the offseason. I mean, Matt Carpenter, even during the season, like, he's just come in and he has absolutely been dominant. Of course, the pitching stat or the pitching rotation for the Yankees have been great. The fact that Garrett Cole as the ace has been probably the worst pitcher for the Yankees is definitely, been a testament to just the arms that the Yankees do have. And like we mentioned, the Mets, they still have a couple of arms, waiting in the chamber to come off from injury, and Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. So I think that the potential is definitely high. But, again, I still just want to slightly reserve, my expectations, still temper it a little bit, as we know what both teams are capable of doing in the back half of the season, which isn't a great thing to say. So, let's just take all this happy energy right now, continue to be happy for both teams. Both teams were the first team to make it to 40 wins in their respective leagues. But let's just see what happens after the All-Star break. I think that's where I'm going to be at right now with it, just to keep my expectations low, because you just heard how happy I would be if it does happen. But I had my expectations broke a lot of times before, not even in sports. So we're just going to wait and see.
Listen, I already put my house on the Yankees, so I'm going to put my house on the Mets too. Hopefully I don't end up homeless by the end of this year, but listen, this is such a great organic time for New York. And if we had a Subway Series, sheesh. New York would just go be electric. I think it would almost be as electric as we saw when the Giants won their 2 Super Bowls, in this century. So if we had a Subway Series, matter of fact, I think we're gonna have a Subway Series, 100%. You heard it right here first. It's gonna be a Subway Series, and the outcome, the Mets.
Wow. That is a very bold take. That's crazy, because I'm a little bit more reserved on the Nets, actually. I think this is the year that the Yankees put it together. They've just been due, and they're playing so well right now. I think this is the year that they finally go on a deep postseason run and get back to the World Series. But the Mets, this is a team that we saw start out really hot last season too, and the wheels kind of fell off the train in mid-July. And I don't know. I could see that happening again. I hope not, but I wouldn't be completely surprised. I think the Mets are more pretenders, but I think they can certainly put it together if Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom come back and play at a high level, and the rest of the team keeps playing at the high level that they are now. But I'm a little bit more wary. So, Chris, I feel like you might be losing your house at some point this year. But I think the Subway Series World Series would be absolutely absurd for the MLB. I mean, the ratings would be ridiculous on the World Series. I don't even want to imagine the amount of money that would be put into that series. But that'll do it for the first episode of Hall Pro this summer. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, Once again, I'm Ryan Johnston, joined alongside my good friends, Wilnir Lewis and Chris Ellison. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.